Intro, and thank you Archana, I guess, for calling me here, and thank you all for taking your time to listen to me. One question before I really start about introductions and all that. How many of you here are Elon Musk fans? Yeah. Who was that? Nice. How many of you here have some sort of engineering background? Right. Right. Just trying to understand my audience before I plunge in. And finally, how many of you follow aerospace news? Cool. Okay. She's forced to sort of, so I'm taking her out of the equation now. Cool. That said, I think we live in really interesting times now. Ram, next slide, please. So this is not a picture from a storybook or a cartoon, right? This was reality, and it happened 3 months ago. So wanted to start off on this note because I think a picture like this, and how many of you have read Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy? Okay, so I was, when I read it first, I think 11 years ago, this was kind of the image I had in my head when I read Don't Panic, and it was don't panic in reality happening. So to me it felt like really anything is possible, right? That's what this picture means. So I'm here to talk about why rocket science need not be rocket science today. That's the topic. Next slide. 2 lines about myself. I am Srinath Ravichandran. I am co-founder of 2 companies. One is Space Cooperative, which is sort of online or a more smarter way to build a global space agency. So that's what that effort is. And Agnikul is the other startup that is here in Chennai. We are trying to build a small rocket which will actually go to space, take up to 100 kgs to orbit. Next. So I just wanted to, like a lot of us hear this phrase, right? We can do this, or you can do this, come on, it's not rocket science, right? And the question came to us in multiple ways, both in Space Cooperative and in Agnikul. What do you say here? You can't say it's not rocket science, right? So then we started deconstructing that and thinking about actually what that statement means. We have come up with a few techniques to trick our minds into dealing with problems we face, and I thought I'll share that with you through actual examples. So first, when you deal with any complex problem where you know someone is going to tell you that it's not rocket science, you can do it. You can also think of the following things, because that's what we do. 1, find an analogy that you and your that appeals to you and your team, and give you a real example that worked for us. And Archana knows this. So that is an example. A lot of our investors we go to pitch our rockets don't understand the context, right? They are from a different background. So, and we've tried so many ways to explain it, saying opportunity cost and time and all that passes right over their heads. Then we found a simple analogy, and that really works. We tell them that ISRO, for example, is building a bus that takes, or a truck that takes things to space. We, on the other hand, here are building a share auto, right? And that clicks. And so it really solved the big problem of now a 15-second pitch. If it goes to like a 30-second pitch, this is what we say. We are building like the share auto that goes to space. I know it's not very glamorous, but it works. So that was one point I wanted to bring out. Next one is, this is actually something that has helped us a lot in the sense that whenever you're faced with a problem, if you hit a wall, try to restate the problem completely to yourself. I'll give you an example again, real life. Next slide. So we have a lot of engineers from electronics and software background working with us, and they are not typically rocket people themselves. They are not mechanics people, right? So how do you explain something to them? It was a big challenge for us, and we were not able to develop like the brain of the rocket without them getting the crux of what we are building. And then suddenly someone came up with this idea in the team. It was during some brainstorming session. Go back. This is the thing. So instead of telling them that you're building a rocket, if you tell an electronics guy or a software guy that he's actually building sort of an iPhone, but that can fly itself to space, that totally changes the context in which he looks at the problem. He's not looking at it as a bunch of engines and whatnot, tanks that go to space, but instead it's like, yeah, I can build a phone, I can probably look at the electronics that go inside the phone, so I just have to make it fly. So that has helped us in getting the problem down to people who are not totally in our field. And finally, this one was also very interesting for us. If someone tells you or you tell yourself that a problem that you're facing is really hard, try to take a step back and question the context in which that person told you or why you're telling it to yourself. Because we are living in times when we are all super busy and very focused on what we are doing, and sometimes we don't understand how much is changing around us, right? The example again here is this one. The picture on the left is, I forgot her last name, it's Margaret is her first name, I think. She was the person who wrote the software that took Apollo to moon. And that list of, whatever, looks like a list of books, that is the actual code she wrote, the amount of code she wrote that took us to moon. And now obviously that can be, so shown in a little thumb drive or whatever, a card, a memory card, right? So when people start telling us that it's not rocket science, it is really hard, it is rocket science, we should question the context in which those analogies or those phrases were made. I actually, for a fact, think we should not be saying, hey, it's not rocket science, because that statement itself is sort of not true anymore. And that's what I have learned in the last 3-4 years. I've been trying to experiment in space. So I think that's all I had to share. I hope next time someone tells you, people, you can do it, it's not rocket science, hope you'll remember this and tell them that, yeah, but even rocket science is not actually rocket science. Thank you.
Thank you so much. With that, I'm going to invite someone who